How's it going, guys? This is going to be a somewhat of a how-to install video for the Downforce Solutions V2 rear diffuser for 2016 through 2018 Ford Focus RS. Now, if you're like me and you buy this kit or pretty much anything from Downforce Solutions, you get no instructions on installation and you're kind of left to figure it out for yourself. It's not too complicated. I'm just figuring out right now that for the rear diffuser, normally you have a big muffler right up here. Now it looks like the bracket for the centerpiece utilizes that rear muffler. Maybe not so much utilizes it, but it looks like they're bent to go around the rear muffler there. So to me it looks like we're going to be going on something like this. See how it's bent right there? Goes around the muffler, and it looks to me like this top section right here. Get back over here. It looks to me like it goes to the upper heat shield for the gas tank. So, kind of pop this up here. You can see it comes down and it has that same angle. Kind of puts this right in the same spot it would be if the muffler were there. But we have a AWE Track Edition exhaust on here, so getting to this one, we're going to have to figure out a way to angle it around the exhaust. So, that being said, onto the side spats. So this is how you get the side spat in the box. We have one bolting location that they were so gracious enough to give us right here. Now, I judged from their pictures online, I was able to see a couple of the mounting locations. They don't really give you any undershots, but you can see a couple from the side. But if you put this up, you can kind of see that this goes, get a good shot here, this goes right into where one of the push rivets goes. So you take out that push rivet and that kind of gives you a general location of where this sucker is going to go. And like I said, if you look in the pictures, you can kind of see on the side over here that we do have a bolt that goes right there. And there are no bolt holes drilled, so it's kind of one of those things where you're on your own. So I was able to figure out, we've got, there's the other side. This is the hole that they gave us that has that piece of little bracket there. It goes right here. Now, if you look, I drilled a hole here, and I've drilled a hole here. Now, what these holes are for, the inner hole is going to be for the bracket they provided. This little Simpson strong tie here, and it bolts up to, there's a little brace here, the bolt, so I'm assuming it goes right here. I'm kind of just taking these brackets, they give you a bolt on one side and there's no bolt on the other, so I'm assuming the one where there's no bolt, you're going to be utilizing something that's already on the car. So this one, it looks like it fits pretty good. It goes there, it brings it right down to the right spot. If we pop this up here, you can see, bam, there you go, perfect, right? Now the other hole over here, you're going to be drilling through your bumper, flat spot right here. You're going to be drilling up, and they also give you another one. I'm assuming we're going to be drilling another hole right about here. So those are the side spats. Those aren't too bad to figure out, but like I said, the hardest part is this the centerpiece, because one of the brackets is, you can see, or you can see in the pictures, it looks like one of the brackets is right here. You can see kind of an angled shot from the rear view, and you can see a bracket right here. So the smaller bracket's gonna go here, but it just seems like you kind of need more bracketry for such a large centerpiece. So you can see back to the centerpiece here. We got this big centerpiece, and it seems like it's a little bit of weight for just, you know, 4 little brackets like that. So one of the brackets is going to go here. That's where the spot I just showed you. It's going to be right around here. Same with the other side, right around here. That's these guys, these nice little aluminum pieces right here. So it's going to be something like that. So obviously if we've got the front, or I'm sorry, the rear supported, we're going to need some support for back here, which is what was leading me to the conclusion that this bent piece is most likely going to go about here, with the top part utilizing those nuts from the existing heat shield. Now I do have the old muffler, and I place it on here, and it definitely kind of contours to the curvature. So I mean, this is my best guess. I played around with it. There's really no other location I can see this connecting to on the underside. So we're gonna go with that for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and get one of these side spats fully mocked up, and we'll go from there. So we've got this mounted in 2 locations. We've got the little provided piece, if you can see right here. All right, and if you look, you can see that goes right where that plastic rivet went. So that one's the no-brainer. So then we've got this piece here, which we've bolted to that bracket. See underneath here. All right, now the third location that we're working on right now is this hole right here. Now we can see we have a kind of a flat section right here on the underside of the rear bumper. So what we want to do, and I kind of measured this out yesterday, where this hole is going to be, I had a helper to straighten this fin out for me, because obviously we don't want this going on crooked and looking weird and funky. So we want to get this where we want it before we mark that hole where it's going to be. Now we already did that. I still haven't drilled into the bumper just yet, but you can kind of see you have some wiggle room as far as the placement. So if we come back here, you can see that we're at a slight angle. Obviously we want to make this look as good as possible, so we want to straighten it out. So I would highly recommend having a helper for this, or you can rig up some sort of way to you know, hold this in place where you want it to be. As of right now, we have those 2 bolts in, which, you know, we know the spots where those are going to go. It's not too big of a deal as far as, you know, where we've drilled for the rear piece, that one hole. But, you know, when we're drilling into the bumper, we want to make sure that that's going to be the spot it's going to be. We don't want Swiss cheese. If you do happen to take this off in the future, you don't want the car looking like crud. So let's make sure we get that placement right the first time. You know, measure twice, cut once, that deal. So we'll go ahead and see if we can get a helper here to hold this straight where it needs to be, and then I'll go ahead and drill the hole for the side spat under here. And after we have that done, then we can work on drilling the second hole, which is a little bit harder to place because, you know, we want to make sure that we drill it in the right spot. We're not coming out in some weird location. So we'll get that done and go from there. All right, guys, it's looking pretty good. We've got the lower bolt here to the bumper secured. It's looking pretty straight. I'm happy with it. So the next step is to get the last secondary little bumper bolt drilled in there. So it's going to be a little difficult to figure out exactly where it goes. We'll be drilling from underneath, do it while it's on here. But yeah, we'll be careful, figure it out, and get this sucker put on. Drilled. You can see right here. Let's go underneath. And there's our first one. And there is our second hole right there. So we'll get this one bolted on, and then we'll be all done with this side, and we'll be able to go on to the next. All right, I'll be honest on this one, I kind of had to guesstimate where that second hole is drilled. If you can see, I kind of looked back here, I looked underneath where I kind of needed to be, you know, line myself up. Looked a few times, make sure that's where I wanted it, and luckily it's perfect. Okay, so we've got all of the mounting locations secured. Got our front little spacer piece here, that where the hole was provided for us. our actual bracket, which bolts onto the support coming off here, a little bracket. That is bolted right on the other side of the fin there. And if we come up on the inside, I don't know if we can see there, it's kind of hard to see, but right there, hold on, right there we go. So we've got our first one we measured right here. So that's right on the back side, closest to your wheel. And then that's the one we kind of guesstimated where to drill. Turned out pretty good. So we've got everything here, and this thing is actually pretty darn solid. So this is definitely not going anywhere. Mention, you know, don't be afraid of bending this bracket a little bit to get it where you need it. It's kind of just like a rough shape for you. I've noticed that I kind of had to bend this this lower tab here down a little bit and kind of push this out to get it where I wanted it. You can see there's a rivet right here, and obviously here's this fin here, and I want to go on the other side of this. So, you know, I'm going to push this back a little bit, and if you can see here, kind of fold that down, and then it pulls up, you know, right where it needs to be. And also, one thing to note is make sure you have enough room for your washer. These washers are a little on the large side, so when you do make the spot for your hole, make sure you have enough room for that washer to fit without, you know, binding up on this fin here. So this is where I start at. You know, obviously, like I was saying before, I want to start with the piece that was provided. We know where this is going to go. This is giving us our rough kind of area of where we're going to be in, and from there I'm going to this bracket and bolting this in. That's the side where there was just a hole with no bolt. You know, I removed that bolt. The hole, another thing to note, the hole for this bracket here is a little tiny small. This doesn't just pop right in, but this stuff's so thin you kind of just thread it in to the hole. This bolt just thread it right into the hole, and it goes in real easy, and then you can go ahead and secure it to the top there. So our next step, we're going to get this where we want it, right on the other side of this rivet here. We're going to look at our hole, and we're going to make sure we have enough room for our washer, and we're going to head and mark that hole. We'll drill that out, and then we'll go to the next step, which will be securing, you can see the end right over here where my thumb is. We're going to bolt right there, and lastly, we're going to bolt right there. Okay, there's the hole I just marked out, got it drilled out 1/4 inch right here. So we'll go ahead and pop this sucker back on, and we can measure for the back outside corner closest. Okay, so we've got these two secured on here. We don't have to cinch them down too tight, you know, just snug. We want to be able to still move it around a little bit to maneuver it where we need to. So we've got this guy here. Another thing to note, you can see there's no washer on top here and no washer underneath here. This little, so a thick piece of rubber, that's kind of your little spacer. It does slip fairly nicely into, there's a little groove under here where that push rivet went, and this piece of hose kind of pops right in there pretty nicely. But we do have our washer up top and our washer on the bottom there, so that's looking pretty good. So we'll go from here. We're gonna look and roughly estimate where we want this to be. If we pop out again, we'll see roughly it's on there. You can see, you know, it's a little crooked. It's not where it's gonna be. We're going to maneuver it into place, and you can see how much that's moving there. So pretty much this is gonna be a really important hole right here. Where we put this hole is really gonna determine where this fin is gonna end up. And obviously we want it straight, we don't want it crooked, we don't want it lopsided. We want it nice and straight, we want it to look good. So we're gonna make sure that we get this hole right here drilled in the right spot. So I might need to get a helper again to hold this in place while I mark the spot to drill, and go from there. All right, so one more thing to mention. If you can see, let's see, right here, there's a little piece of ribbing on the inside of the bumper. Now when we go to make that hole, we want to make sure we avoid that. And like I was saying before, we want to have enough room for that washer to fit. When I did the first hole on the other side, I had just a tiny little bit that was touching the rib there. It was able to kind of push it aside. You know, it's soft plastic. So if we go back over here, let's see if I can show you. You can see how it just kind of, the edge was hitting right there, and it just kind of pushed it over that way a tiny bit. So just something to take a note of. Make sure when you figure out where you're going to put that hole that you have the clearance. And the same with the bolt too. You don't want it too close this way. You don't want it too close to the edge of the bumper here. You don't want it too far out. You want to try to get it right in the middle of that little flat spot. Let's see, come on the other side here. So you see there's a little flat spot here. So we want to get it right on that flat spot, right in the middle of that section there. Too close to the edge. We don't want it to pull out. We want it nice and sturdy. So, you know, just be careful when you're measuring. Take note of, you know, where that washer is going to go. We got to have room for that washer. So something to keep in mind when you're making your final placement for drilling your holes. All right, so we got them both in. There, right there. They're looking really good. You can see the spacing from that ribbing right there on the right is pretty good, away from that washer. I was able to just do it while this piece was, the side spat was on. Just went ahead and got that one right there done, and then went ahead and just popped that sucker into while I was at it. So, like I said, with this this one here, this one's a little bit more difficult because you kind of have to eyeball it. If you look back here, you can see how much this actually goes in right here. So we want to kind of go down and back. We want to get our drill just kind of from back behind, get our drill where we want it. Look on this side, look on the other side, you know, make sure that, you know, you're not going to be drilling a hole, you know, somewhere out here. Make sure you got your bit where you need it. If anything, go further in than out too far, because we don't want a hole on the outside looking like crap. So anyways, it turned out really good. So we got both sides of the side spats completed. So it's looking pretty nice. This one here, this one here. So it's looking pretty good. So now it is on to the centerpiece. All right, so I went ahead and removed the fastener right here. Looks like it connects to another little bracket to hold the bumper and the stock diffuser in place. It's got a fastener, looks like this. It is a 8mm, and we've got one of those little pop nuts on there. I always forget the technical term for these things. I'm sure someone will let me know, or it may come to me. Anyways, so we're gonna remove this. We're gonna take off this clip nut. I guess maybe that's what it is, clip nut. So now we're nice and open right here, and we can go ahead and get our bracket on, and we'll do the same with the other side. That's how it looks right there. 8mm. Take that off. Remove the little clip nut, and get those brackets on. So, upon further exploration and reviewing the pictures I was talking about earlier, it looks like the long bolt is going to be used. Let's see if we can focus this in. The long bolt is going to be used up top here, and the bracket is going to hang like this and hang off to the side and come in towards the center of the bumper, the center of the diffuser. So, because the bracket doesn't really fit in here, it almost does, but not really. And then when I saw the picture, you could see that this is the direction the bracket was in. So the only way to make that work would be to use that long bolt and to essentially let this hang and then snug it up so it would just be being supported from the top there, hanging down. So it looks like that's what we're gonna go with. There's really no other way to make that work with the short bolt, so Looks like this is our ticket right here. Now another thing too is the washer right here. It won't fit up top to go right underneath the nut. There is this bracket coming down. There isn't quite enough room from the back of the bracket to where the hole is for the washer to fit just under the nut. So what I did is I sandwiched it in between that piece of metal and the plastic of the bumper here. Not sure if that's what they're expecting you to do. Like I said, it won't fit here unless you actually shave some of the washer off. But because this bracket's metal and the nut is sitting on a piece of metal, I'm not too worried about it deforming or causing any damage. So, like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and use this washer right here in between. Because it's going to be hanging, there's going to be weight, so I don't want the bracket pulling down on the piece of bumper here. I'm sorry, this metal bracket right here. So there's a little bit more surface area on this washer, so go ahead and just pop that sucker in there and make it work. So yeah, so it looks like this is how we're going to be running it. We'll go ahead and get the other side mocked up and get that centerpiece on. Curious just how much you need to tighten these. What I'm doing is I pretty much made it just so the threads were starting to come through the nylon on the lock nut. Want to make sure that there's enough grabbing there that it's not going to come loose. Obviously we don't want to do it too much because we don't want this pulled up all funky at an angle, but that's popping through just a little bit. It looks like we push up here. When we have that on there, it's going to be nice and snug. That should be good. So what I would do is just, you tighten that. I put my finger up top over the wrench. And I just felt as I screwed it in, I just felt it coming through a tiny bit and stop. Same with the other side. So you can see the bolt is coming through just enough so the nylon's grabbing it. You can actually back that out a little bit more, but we want to make sure that we got bolt going through all of that nylon to make sure that's grabbing well enough. So, but it looks like that's going to be pretty good. Alright, so what I was able to do was I got some lovely masking tape. You'd be surprised the resilience of this stuff. And I taped this guy up to the bumper here, and then underneath I taped it up to that cross member there. And was able to have it held up, and I kind of maneuvered it, measured on both sides, made sure that it was even, and then using the brackets, pushed the brackets where they needed to be while it was up, and made a mark. One was a little bit off. I used the measuring tape again to, let's see here, just kind of measure roughly just in the same spot. Want to make sure everything's square. Came back here, and about 4 inches there, and about 4 inches there. We've got 2.5 and 2.5. So now it looks like we're going to be nice and square. We're going to go ahead and drill these out, and hopefully everything's in the right spot. Because it is down low, I mean, if you do need to drill again, or if you need to make the hole a little bit larger so you have some maneuverability, so you can, or adjustability, to get it just right and perfectly even, that's also an option. Hopefully we got these where they need to be. We'll hit it on the first try, and if not, no worries, we can always drill it out a little bit bigger so we can slide it side to side to make it go where we want. So go ahead and drill these out, get this mounted up to those two brackets, and see how that's looking. Alright, so we got the two brackets in. It's looking really good. Everything's nice and square. Let's see, we got that guy right there. On the other side, we got this guy right here. Now you can see you do have some maneuverability here. Depending on where you place the rear bracket, you can have, how should I put it? So if the rear goes up, it's going to open up a gap here. If the rear or the bottom goes down, it's going to close it up. I'm going to try to make it similar to the gap that's on the side spats here, just so everything looks nice and even and flush. So give it a tiny little bit just so you have some room from the stock diffuser, so we're not rubbing and bumping and grinding too much. Not that that's a bad thing, but for this application, I don't know if you really want that. But anyways, so you can see here, this goes up, Opens this up, same thing. So that's looking really good. Now that we've got this going, we can work on the rear supports. And once we get those in, we can tighten everything down and see how stable this is. It's actually, with these brackets here, feels pretty darn good. I mean, I think this is supporting most of the weight, and because we do have that metal bracket up there, I'm pretty confident it's gonna hold the weight of this and be functional and not have any issues. But you know, like I said, we want to double check and make sure that, you know, this sucker's on here good. If you're going to be driving at speed, and you know, as like me, I'm going to be, you know, lots of track use, so I want to make sure this guy's on here good and it's not going to go flying off on the track or at freeway speed. So we'll get to work on these rear brackets and go from there. Alrighty guys, so I've come to find out that I'm not going to be able to use these guys here. Like I said before, I think they're meant to be used when you have the stock muffler installed. I've tried every possible mounting point that's in there and nothing really seems right to me. There's a way that you can do it sideways, but I feel like if anything pulls down, it's going to straighten this out, and then the bottom of this here is just going to sag. So what I've opted to do is I hit the hardware store and I picked up some ties. Now, these are thicker than your standard Simpson Strong tie. I just wanted a little bit more support, so I've already drilled this out. Got the 1/4 inch holes here, then I just use a step bit for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount those plates right here where these braces are. So you can see these braces come in, and it's got 2 bolts right here, and then this is the back of the diffuser. So we're going to essentially slip this. There we go. Slip this underneath here. I'll drop that washer out real quick. Okay, so we're gonna slip this under here. That's gonna bolt in, and it'll hold the rear of the diffuser. And then I made 2 holes. I picked up a couple extra nuts and bolts and washers, and we'll throw an extra one in there just to be safe. So I mean, it's looking pretty good. As far as the gap on the front here, it's looking pretty nice. It pulls it out just enough when it's sitting flat to match the sides here. So let's go ahead and install that bracket and see how it looks. Guys, installation is complete. Downforce Solutions V2 rear diffuser for 2016 through 2018 Ford Focus RS. It's looking really good. Gap's looking good. Like I said earlier, I had to make a little custom bracket right here. You can see that bolt there's a different bolt. I accidentally snapped the other one, so all I had was a 1 inch, little short one, so I wasn't able to get a washer on there. I'll have to hit the hardware store later today and get a new one on there. But the bracket's on there really good. Everything's really stable, really sturdy. This thing is not going anywhere. Like I said, you know, with that not having the rear muffler on there, I wasn't able to use that other bracket they gave. I looked everywhere. I couldn't figure out where the heck that thing would possibly mount to, and not having the muffler for guidance, you know, I figured it was easier just to make something else, and I think that worked out pretty darn good. I mean, it's overkill having the 4 bolts on there, but yeah, better safe than sorry, right? So yeah, that's the Downforce Solutions V2 rear diffuser Ford Focus RS. Hope this helped you guys. You know, there's really not much information on installing these bad boys, so yeah, hopefully that helped, and if you have any questions, let me know.